I'm Sarah Thomas, and I'm going to be talking about an excerpt from Gwendolyn Brooks' A Bronzeville Mother Loiters in Mississippi. Meanwhile, a Mississippi mother burns bacon. Uh, this poem is from Brooks's collection, The Bean Eaters, which was published in 1960. This was around the time of the Civil Rights Movement, so this collection and this poem specifically deal a lot with kind of the controversies that were going on at the time and the differences between blacks and whites. This specific poem is dealing with the death of Emmett Till, and I think my interpretation of this poem is that Brooks is writing from the point of view of Carolyn Bryant, um, and Carolyn Bryant was the woman who Till whistled at, and her husband was the man who ended up killing Till. Um, and I think in this specific excerpt, uh, Carolyn Bryant is finally realizing and admitting that there was something wrong with Till's murder. She's kind of realizing that her husband uh, didn't really have a justifiable reason to murder Till, and she's ends up comparing her husband and Till in this excerpt, and kind of realizes that his Till's murder wasn't right. And I think this shows that Carolyn Bryant is kind of straying from this milk white maid and damsel in distress archetype that she's portrayed as in the beginning of the poem. Um, I'm going to be talking about the structure of the poem and how there's a clear shift that kind of differentiates between Emmett Till and Roy Bryant, Carolyn Bryant's husband. And then I'm going to talk about the childlike language that Brooks uses to show Carolyn Bryant's motherly qualities. And then I'm going to be talking about the repetition um, in this section to show a parallel between Emmett Till and Roy Bryant. So first, I'm going to talk about the structure of the poem. So in the beginning, right here, you can see that this section starts with the word but, and this is an indication that there's gonna be a shift in here, or a shift starting in this section. And the thing that I noticed immediately was that there was a shift in tone. So obviously right here there is kind of like a questioning tone. I think that Carolyn Bryant is finally thinking about this, the whole thing that went on, and Till's murder, and she's kind of asking herself, were we right to kill Till? And I think she's thinking about it here and finally realizing that no, his death wasn't justified. This was wrong, and you can tell when she uses the words too young to be dirty and too young to have lost every reminder of its infant softness. So she realizes here that Till's actions, when he whistled at her, he wasn't really thinking, he wasn't from there, he didn't know the rules, so he didn't mean anything by whistling. She realizes that he was just a kid, he was just playing around. So he wasn't really doing anything wrong. Um, and that's contrasted to her husband in this part. So there's a shift right here. And Bryant goes from talking about her husband, or sorry, she goes from talking about Till to talking about her husband in this section. And you see here that she calls him a baby full of tantrums, and this is a sharp contrast to this infant softness that Till had. While they're both, children, or portrayed as, not portrayed, but she both calls them children. Um, there's kind of a difference. Like, a baby full of tantrums isn't soft, so she's kind of realizing the difference between um, the real baby, which was Emmett Till, and kind of this overgrown baby who was overreacting at something so minor, which was her husband. So she's kind of realizing that Till's actions, he didn't mean anything, and he couldn't really control it. He didn't know better. and she's comparing that to her husband's actions, um, which he could control. He did know better. He knew he didn't have to kill this little kid. So next I'm going to be talking about the childlike language, and a few examples are infant softness. A mother's always going to see a kid's softness. Um, she calls him a baby full of tantrums. She calls Till a boy. And I think that these examples kind of show they have a motherly connotation, and this kind of shows it proves that Carolyn Bryant was a mother. She obviously cared because she's using all these childish terms. And I think that, you know, this is important because these motherly qualities are the things, or this was a big part of why she was able to kind of realize that Till's death was bad, or, it wasn't justified. Because obviously a mother is going to side more with an innocent child than she is with a man who killed an innocent child. Because um, she understands what being a mother is, and loving children, and just being a mother. And also the whole poem kind of has this fantastical um, language, and it's all just a big metaphor. And a few specific examples in this excerpt are a dark villain, and she calls her husband the fine prince right here. Um, and then down here, here's another reference, unhorsed, which I interpreted as Till being, he didn't have a weapon, he was not threatening at all, but it still plays into that whole fantastic metaphor. It's all like a big fairy tale, which again plays into that childlike feeling of the poem, um, which then again plays into um, Carolyn Bryant's motherly qualities. Lastly, for technique, I'm going to be talking about the repetition. So you can see that there's a repetition here of undisputed breadth and height. And that's here again, right here. So I think that this kind of shows a parallel between Till and Roy Bryant. And this kind of like compares, well, Carolyn Bryant is comparing Till and her husband, because right here it says that Till lacked these qualities. So he was just a kid. He wasn't big and manly. And down here, um, her husband was. He was a grown man. Um, and I think that this kind of shows like the stark difference between Till and her husband. Um, she's finally realizing that Till was just a child. He was still a baby. Uh, so this kind of reiterates that he didn't really know what he was doing, whereas her husband was a grown man. He had these qualities. He was big and tall. Um, so, his actions weren't justified because he could have stopped himself, whereas Emmett Till was just playing around. And then again, there's this repetition of hacking down right here. And I think that this imagery kind of has like it's brutal and ruthless. And I think that this kind of shows um, Carolyn Bryant's disgust, or her character's disgust with her husband, because she's remembering the murder and seeing how horribly gruesome it was. And I think that, she feels the need to say it twice, and I think she's kind of disgusted with that. And this shows how she changed. She's straying from that milk white maid. She sees how horrible her fine prince, or what was supposed to be her fine prince, was. Um, in conclusion, I think that Brooks' theme is that a mother's love has no bounds. Um, you know, in this poem, or in this excerpt, Carolyn Bryant didn't care that Emmett Till was a little black kid. She just saw that he was a child in need and didn't have anyone there when she needed, or when he needed. So she feels guilty um, about the death, and she sees that what was supposed to be her fine prince um, wasn't so fine after all. Um, and I think that Brooks wanted Carolyn Bryant to feel this way. I mean, obviously, there's no way to completely tell if this is what Carolyn Bryant felt because this isn't her writing, but I think that Brooks wanted Bryant to feel this way. Um, After all, Carolyn Bryant was a mother herself, so how could she not feel this way? She was a mother.